fatally delayed by 30 minutes. I seek your sympathy and forgiveness to accept
Recording in
our
progress.
apologies because the meetings were overlapping. If the apology is given, I can now proceed. Thank you.
You are most welcome, our chief guest. Just by way of background, this meeting today, we are here to launch the 8th edition of the Open Budget Survey Report 2021. It is an event which is carried out after every other 2 years by the International Budget Partnership. Now for Uganda chapter, it is carried out in collaboration with the Uganda Data Network. And normally they look at 3 parameters. That is transparency, public participation, and then budget oversight. So our chief guest, before us here, we have majorly 5 categories of participants. We have members drawn from government institutions, which are relevant to these parameters: transparency, participation, and oversight. Development partners. You have IMF, World Bank. Some of them, of course, have not been able to be with us physically, but they are online. Our colleague Gilbert will take us through the team that is online. We have also the academia, and then civil society organizations, then plus the media. So basically, that is the background to the event. So members, you are most welcome for this meeting. By way of introduction, my name is Tagore Ali, and I've been working with the Uganda Data Network to make the arrangements for this event. Our guest of honor for today, our program has, we shall have the keynote address from the chief guest. Then the chairperson, board, UDN, will take us through the OBS results. Then the next item is supposed to be the launch. According to the original program, it was supposed to be done by the Honorable Minister of Finance, but we received apologies that he was summoned by the Prime Minister, so not be with us. Then after that, we shall have a statement from representative of the civil society, and that will be the executive director. Then we have key commentaries. That's now, it is more or less like a plenary, involving many discussants, Parliamentary Budget Committee Chairperson, Office of Auditor General, Minister of Finance and Academia. Then the last one will be the way forward. That is action plan on the issues that shall have been deliberated on. Then finally, the closing remarks by country representative, UNICEF. So, on that note, I request our dear PST to give us the keynote address. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. And I think also at the point of launch, I have been asked by the minister, that's why I was attending to a phone call when I was coming, to step in for him because he will not have come back by that time, because I understand Honorable March actually had called him to secure his presence in this meeting. But nevertheless, I'll have to handle both functions and the call of duty demands. We shall then get the introductions of everybody in broad categories, maybe towards the end of this discussion. But for now, let's save time. The Honorable Minister of Finance, who is expected to have been here, Planning and Economic Development, heads of government institutions, development partners, board chairpersons, chairperson Uganda Dead Network, directors of civil society organizations, the academia, the ministry's technical team, the media fraternity, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I wish you to take the honor to welcome you to the launch of Uganda's Open Budget Survey Report 2021, which is the 8th edition in the series. Thank you for honoring our invitation to be part of this very important event. Allow me in a special way to thank the International Budget Partnership and Uganda Dead Network for coordinating the open budget surveys, which evaluate the extent to which our budget process adhere to the participatory principles of good governance, especially transparency, responsiveness to system needs, and accountability. This is in line with the Budget Transparency Initiatives, BTI, which we have been implementing since 2013. I wish to thank the National Budget Month partners for the support extended towards this implementation of the National Budget Month activities, preparation for this financial year, with the aim of popularizing the budget, its outcomes, intended purpose, the focus areas, priorities, and so on and so forth. That will allow us to measure the impact of the budget each year. The National Development Plan 3 recognizes the non-responsiveness of the public sector to the needs of citizens and the private sector as one of the challenges of economic development. To this effect, government prioritized establishment of a clear systems of to adequately measure performance for results in a transparent manner and facilitate access to timely, accurate, and comprehensive public information, and strengthen the legal framework to enhance citizen participation in the budget process, either directly or indirectly through their representatives. We have been and will continue to implement a number of initiatives aimed at strengthening our collaboration with civil society organizations under the BTI framework. Innovative platforms have been developed to facilitate access to budget information, feedback on budget implementation, and performance of the budget. This is expected to improve accountability for service delivery and also enable civil society to assess the government on the reporting, monitoring, and use of public funds. I should add the word measurement of results for the funds expended for public expenditures as a key initiative that this helps us evaluate. The initiatives so far implemented include strengthening the legal framework, involvement of civil society and citizens in the budgeting process, citizens' participation in lower local government budget consultations, civil society organizations undertaking joint service delivery monitoring exercises with duty bearers, development partners, and operationalization of ICT platforms to facilitate access to information and feedback, institutionalized quarterly press briefing, and I think you're going to have one on the first quarter releases sometime next week, and supplements on the releases, making it the cardinal principle of our operations. The government of Uganda adopted the performance program-based planning and budgeting effective last financial year, which emphasizes linking resources to results. With this approach, government institutions are put to task to answer the question, so what question are they supposed to answer as they implement government programs? In other words, for whatever we do, there must be evidence that the desired outcomes are being achieved. It is through civil society initiatives such as open budget surveys that we are able to get feedback from citizens and private sector on the level of effectiveness of the above budget transparency initiatives, or simply put, we get answers to the question. So what question, the so what question that we normally continue asking when we give resources. Therefore, the results for Open Budget Survey 2021 are timely, given that we have just commenced execution of the budget for financial year 2022/23. I am very eager to receive the results and the recommendations for further improvement to guide government on areas to focus on in the budget execution for financial year 2022/23. I wish to thank the Uganda Debt Network and the International Budget Partnership Group, IBP, for spearheading the Open Budget Transparency Survey and the Budget Transparency Initiative partners for continuous advocacy to ensure good governance in the budget process and its monitoring. I now take this opportunity to invite Uganda Debt Network Board Chairperson, Honorable Fred Jachano-Mach, to present the result of the Open Budget Transparency Survey for 2021 for Uganda. I thank you.
Thank you very much, our dear PST. At this juncture, I wish to invite Mr. Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert? Yes, could you please come and apply a zoom lens onto this audience so that our guest of honor gets to know who is here in details before our dear chairperson comes to digest the results.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, sir, Mr. Guest of Honor. My name is Gilbert Musinguzi. I work with Uganda Debt Network, and we appreciate that you have hosted us in this function. Before you, we have a team of representatives from civil society fraternity. That is the majority who have been working in the National Budget Month, who include Uganda Debt Network. They can put up their hands. We have Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. We have Siatini. And then the others are ministries, departments, and agencies of government, which I think you'll be able to introduce. So that is the category of people who are here. And of course, our usual friends, the media, they are here. And those will be, of course, addressed by the Executive Director of Uganda Debt Network. Yes, thank you, sir. So there has been a slight alteration in the order. We shall request the board chairperson to be preceded by the Executive Director of Uganda Debt Network. So I request the Executive Director of Uganda Debt Network to be the one to come and give the remarks, and he will be the one to invite the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, MC. Thank you, Commissioner. I still address the Honorable Minister because he's here. There's a representative. Development partners represented here. Officials from various government departments and agencies. Honorable members of Parliament represented here, and the Directorate of Budget Office in Parliament, the Chair of UDN Board, UDN Board members represented here, National Budget Month partners, fellow members of civil society fraternity, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to recognize the fact that we do have people who are online, including some of our partners in the US. IBP is actually participating. I want to welcome all of you. My name is Atumavize Patrick, as mentioned. I'm the Executive Director of Uganda Data Network. And on behalf of Uganda Data Network, I would like to welcome you to the launch of the 21 Open Budget Survey results. I wish to sincerely thank all of you for the time, sparing the time to come over here and to participate in this launch. In a special way, as Uganda Data Network, we want to appreciate the Minister of Finance for the good working relationship in the survey and the launch of the budget survey report since 2006. We've been working very closely with the Minister of Finance in this aspect. On the same note, we sincerely thank the International Budget Partnership and the UNICEF, who have consistently rendered financial support for undertaking the open budget surveys and launch. It is one of the strongest pillars, Mr. Guest of Honor, that made the survey and today's launch being possible. We really thank you so much. We wish also to recognize and appreciate our other development partners for their support, which definitely has enabled Uganda Data Network to deliver on her mandate since inception in 1996. Government has always been cooperative in providing information necessary for compiling the OBS report, Mr. Guest of Honor. This is an extensive process that has over 190 questions, so their time and responsiveness cannot be downplayed. Allow me, Mr. Guest of Honor, also to appreciate the National Budget Month partners who were mentioned earlier, who include the MDAs and some civil society members, for their, and in the media definitely, for their contribution on awareness raising and popularizing the national budget, including the OBS activities. The impact of OBS exercise hitherto, as you may later note, probably from the presentation, Mr. Guest of Honor, Uganda's OBS ranking has generally continued to improve in most of the areas, although there are others that have not been so positive. As a result of the OBS reports, we are glad that government has progressively been responsive to calls and recommendations for budget participation, transparency, and oversight improvement. For example, the initiative for regional and national consultative budget conferences, I think that's the right way to go. The publishing of budget information on a website, sir, I think that is very good. In addition, the OBS exercises have been conciliatory, where CSOs are no longer seen by government as mere confrontational critics, but as partners in development. No wonder Uganda has consistently been faring best in East Africa, and very well at the continental level, and globally also quite well. And we can't take this, we take pride in this race, Mr. Guest of Honor. But definitely, we need to do more. We can do better. The sky is the limit. I'm sure a number of recommendations will be presented by the chair of the board of the Uganda Data Network, which definitely we should look to, as you mentioned in your speech, Mr. Guest of Honor, so that we continue to improve our budget processes. As a way forward, Uganda Data Network is committed to continuing the partnership in all forms where applicable, especially in OBS exercises. Over time, we have groomed local content expertise, Mr. Guest of Honor, and broadened the coalition of budget transparency actors. I mentioned we started in 1996, and we've been doing this since 2006. We have seen positive impact being registered both at the national scene and international level, however small a contribution might be. And we have unfettered resolve to sustain those noble efforts in the best interest of Ugandan citizens. Here we call upon all the partners and stakeholders to exhibit the same spirit in subsequent OBS exercises and as other CSO-led development initiatives. I thank you for participating in this 2021 budget launch, survey launch. I wish you a fruitful deliberations for God and my country. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to make an announcement. Fortunately, the minister has come back, so I'll not assume the role that I assumed. He has finished them with efficiency. He has finished the meeting in Prime Minister's office. So my staff are now briefing him, and I think he'll be joining us for the part he was supposed to perform, which I'd assumed I was going to do in case, in a likely event that he doesn't come. So that one I withdraw now, that position. So the minister is now around, he's in the house, but he's being briefed. So he'll be joining us shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's clap for that. Thank you for that brief. The next item on the agenda, of course, we are glad that the minister will also be shortly joining us and will be part of the process. But I also want to remind members that much as we are here, we may look not as like filling the whole room, but we have a very big number who are appearing, who are part of the process, because this is a mixed activity. Some people are on Zoom. And we recognize IBP, particularly Mr. David Robbins from International Budget Partnership. We shall at a later time probably hear you say hello. We have very many other organizations and individuals who are online with us. And we, on that note, of course, apologize for not exactly fulfilling the very time we had indicated that we would be there, but at least now we are available and the activity will go on. So let me request the chairperson of Uganda Debt Network, Honorable Fred Jachan Omach, to come and present the report. Yes? Let him come. We are requesting you to come here, sir. They have this machine.
The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development of Uganda, and all of you distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen. Effective midnight tonight, I have increased the price of 1 kilo of sugar from 3,000 to 5,000 shillings. Honorable Minister, this is exactly how you used to have a closed budget delivered. And you can see the eye, the midnight. And I have done that in order to reduce the number of Ugandans suffering from high blood pressure. And also as a tax revenue measure. Can you imagine that you have not even consulted the gurus in the Ministry of Health, how much of this is caused by eating salt? And you have also not consulted Professor Fred Muhumuza about the inelasticity of the demand for salt, even if you increase the price. So this is what is closed budget operations. And I'm happy, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, to present the Uganda Open Budget Survey results for 2021 on behalf of the Uganda Debt Network, which I joined in 2018, having taken over from my mentor, my professor, Dr. Ezra Sruma, who was the chair for 6 years, and I've been chair since 2018. And I would like to introduce the members of the board who are here. If they can stand up for recognition, kindly stand up, members of the board of Uganda Debt Network. So Professor Suruma is still a member of the board. Thank you very much. So this presentation, which copies have been given to all of you, I have categorized them into 6 areas. The first one is introduction. The second one is the background. The third one is the transparency, which I've already explained the lack of transparency by increasing salt effective midnight tonight. And then the fourth one is public participation. And then the fifth one is budget oversight. And then the recommendation. And I'm happy that there are panels that will be discussing this very important document. Honorable Minister, sir, the Open Budget Survey is the world's only comparative, independent, and regularly done assignment. Every 2 years, this assignment is done, and it has got 3 components, as has already been mentioned to you, of the budget accountability system, the public availability of the budget information, which is very, very important, and I'm happy, Honorable Minister, you have been doing this extremely well. The second aspect is the public participation in this budget process, which I'm also happy to mention that the Uganda government since 2012 has done very well in this direction. And then the role and effectiveness of oversight institutions, that is the legislature, the Parliament of Uganda, and then the Office of the Auditor General. These are very key oversight bodies that we, together with all of you, have to work. So it is rooted in the premise of open and accountable budget systems which are transparent, offer opportunities for inclusive public participation, and it includes effective oversight by these independent institutions which I have mentioned. And this survey helps the local civil society access and confer with their governments the reporting and use of these public funds that the budget addresses. Now, this, Honorable Minister, is the 8th of the edition of this open budget survey. And this time it has been done in 120 countries all over the world. And in this survey, Honorable Minister, I am very happy to mention that out of 120 countries all over the world, Uganda was rated number 43. So hats off for you. And in the case of East Africa, Uganda was number 1. And in the case of Africa, south of the Sahara, Uganda was number 4. So you can imagine the happiness that we have. But of course, other details, the devil is in the details, as we shall be going through. So since 2006, when the Open Budget Survey was launched, Uganda Debt Network has been partnering with the International Budget Partnership and other civil society organizations worldwide to undertake the Open Budget Survey for Uganda as an independent researcher. So we have been doing this research on behalf of the whole of Uganda. And of course, this launch of the global report, Uganda Debt Network and the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development jointly launched this country result for Uganda. And I'm happy that you are going to do it immediately after this. At the launch, the Office of the Auditor General and the Parliament of Uganda are invited to be here because they are the oversight institutions that help us to see that what government is doing is in tandem with what the international community is saying we should. So this has been arranged in that direction. Now, when we go to item 2, which is the background, which I've already touched on that, and now we go to item 3 of this. There are 8 key budget documents that we used to assess this open budget survey. And this, Mr. Honorable Minister, they come from you here. Mainly, the 8 come from you. The first, which is extremely detailed, is the background to the budget. And I would like to mention very clearly that Africa south of the Sahara, Uganda's document is second to none. It is very detailed. The only possible area that is not the best is that the distribution is not reaching the people in time, and maybe more people should be engaged in receiving it. It gives all the activities that are planned over a 3-year or 5-year development planning. Then the next one is what you now take to the executive, which the executive looks at before they send it to Parliament, so that it is passed and becomes agenda item number 3, what is now the Parliament has passed it, and once the Parliament has passed it, Honorable Minister, you're most welcome to the launch of the 8th Open Budget Survey for Uganda, and which 120 countries, the whole world, participated, and Uganda was number 43. And I'd like to thank you for that, and I've already mentioned this. So we are now looking at the documents that you have been giving out, which this Open Budget Survey looks at. The first one is the pre-budget statement, which is a background. The second one is the executive budget proposal, which you send through cabinet to Parliament. The third one is enacting the budget, which now is in 2 forms. The Public Finance Management Act requires you to have passed this in Parliament by 31st of May every year. And then the East African Convergence requires that by 15th of June of every year, together, they agree on a date and they read the budget, which you did very, very effectively. I think was it on the 12th of last month, or the 14th of last month. So this, in the recommendation, Honorable Minister, is that after this has been passed, it is right and fitting that this should be published and given out to all Ugandans, either physical or to make sure that they are digitally available for them within not more than 3 months. Then you have got, after that, you have the the citizens' budget, which is a summary of the salient issues that are contained in the budget that has been passed by Parliament. And this, Honourable Minister, you have been doing well. These are one of the documents that we look at when we are doing the open budget survey. It gives the citizenry what exactly they require to see. And then after this, the citizens' budget, you have the year in the in-year reports. These are normally done within 1 month or every quarter. And this is important that it goes to the people of Uganda. And then the 6th document that comes from you, which the open budget survey looks at, is the media review. And Honorable Minister, through you, I would like to thank the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, who has been chairing the media review of the activities of ministries, departments, and agencies, which is a very good record and a very good practice. And this information should be able to go to all the citizens of Uganda. And the 7th is the year-end report, which is giving all the details of what you plan to do, how you did it, and the deviations from the plan and from the action. And how does it compare with the National Development Plan, which in this case, Honorable Minister, is the 3rd in the series of 6. How does it relate to this? And then finally, the audit report which you sent, which is sent to Parliament by the Auditor General. To what extent is it detailed so that the open budget survey looks at this and is able to come out with a position of whether that country is doing well or not. Before you entered, sir, I'd mentioned that in the 2021 report, Uganda was the best in East Africa. And the 4th best in Africa south of the Sahara. And we were commending you as you are walking in style coming for this. Honorable Minister, the 3rd issue in my presentation is the transparency. This part of the open budget survey measures public access to information on how the central government raises and spends public resources. It accesses the online availability timelines and comprehensiveness of the 8 key budget documents which I've just highlighted. And as far as the score is concerned, when you are at 61, you are considered to be very open. And you're or above, that indicates that the country is likely publishing enough material to support informed public debate on the budget. But as far as Uganda is concerned, the survey for 2021 puts us at slightly below the 61, at 58, which is still reasonable, but there is room. Honorable Minister, if you will recall, in 2012, Uganda was scoring 65. We were already above the threshold of 61. Then the next year in 2015, because it's done every 2 years, Uganda scored at 62. Now the last 2 have been 58, 58. So we are saying there is room. And right now, it is South Africa, which is on top as far as Africa is concerned, with 86%, followed by Benin with the 65%. Now, in 2012, Benin had scored only 1%, and Uganda was scoring 65. So how can that be? So I would like you to compete maybe with South Africa, but not with Benin, and even Zimbabwe is beating us at 59. We are at 58. So we are giving some recommendation. This report is giving some recommendation so that Uganda should be second to none in East Africa, in the continent, and eventually in the whole world. We are now at 43. We can come back to maybe among the best 10. So that transparency score over time is giving us those issues. You have seen them there. Uganda is scoring 58%. And then the recommendations that follow these transparency scores that should cause us to move forward. Can we go to the recommendations? The next slide. The next again. Now, Uganda should prioritize the following actions to improve budget transparency. Number one, publish the enacted budget online in a timely manner within 3 months of the budget being approved. I've already mentioned that. 2, include in the year-end report detailed actual outcomes for the revenues, comparisons between borrowing estimates and actual outcomes, and comparisons between the original macroeconomic forecast and the actual outcomes. And the Auditor General should improve the comprehensiveness of the audit result and the media reviews. These are issues, when addressed by the Republic of Uganda, we should be second to none in the survey that will be following this one of 2021. The fourth concern is the public participation, which is the next slide, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Now this here, we scored only 19, albeit mainly because of the issue of COVID-19. So we could not go beyond 19 because of COVID-19. So we scored 19, and which is quite low. Of course, some areas where you would be doing consultations, we could only do them online, which was not very easy to some of the citizenaries. And there is room in that. The global average, however, is 14%. But that should not make us relent. Just like our president has been saying, you should not compare pygmies with pygmies, that this pygmy is taller than the other. We should be tall and be second to none in this continent and the world over. So there is room for improvement for this one here where the public participation is concerned. And when you go to the next slide, it tells you that it is only Kenya that was slightly above us with 31%, but we are at 19, but still above the global average of 14% out of the 120 countries that were surveyed. Now in the next slide, public participation. We have given you the spread of it, and then we go to the next slide, which is the recommendation. Now in the recommendation, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Uganda's Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has established pre-budget submissions during budget formulation and e-consultations during budget implementation. But to further strengthen public participation in the budget process, they should prioritize the following. Number one, actively engage with the vulnerable and underrepresented communities, the disabled, the women, directly or through the civil society organizations representative. If we can emphasize more on that, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our scoring would go much higher. 2, The Parliament has established public hearings related to the review of the audit report, but should also prioritize the following action. Number one, allow members of the public or civil society organization to testify during its hearings on the budget proposal prior to its approval. I'm happy that to some extent this has been happening, but Honorable Minister, sir, there is room for improvement. More and more of the people should be invited in Parliament before the final approval of the budget takes place by the Parliament of Uganda. Then allow any member of the public or any civil society organization to testify during hearings on the audit report. A number of audit reports the public does not participate. And a number of reports do come back to your ministry, sir, after a very long time, and making it almost really not that effective. So there is room for improvement as far as that is concerned. And the Uganda's Office of the Auditor General, of course, has established mechanisms for the public to assist in developing its audit program. It should, however, in addition to that, prioritize the following action to improve public participation in this budget process. They should establish a formal mechanism for the public to contribute to relevant audit investigations. The public do have information. And Honorable Minister, you can see from what you have introduced, which is called the Baraza in the various districts. They go now up to sub-counties. Now you are going to have the parish development model. The people would like to have the Baraza to tell you what has happened. So it is important that this is enhanced for the good of the citizenries. Then in the next presentation is the budget oversight. Now in the budget oversight, the legislator and the Office of the Auditor General together provide some oversight during the budget process. Now the composite oversight score is at 59 out of 100. Now this is when it is taken collectively. But when you take it individually, in the next slide, Parliament is scoring only 50. And the Office of the Auditor General has scored 78, which is very, very commendable. And I am confident that our Parliament has room, and they should be in a position to go also over the 61 out of 100 adequacy mark. And this is possible if we can see what they've been doing in the next slide over the last years. In 2017, the legislature was at 53. In 2019, they were at 50. And 2021, they stagnated at 50. It is only right and fitting that they should involve more participation with the civil society organizations and the different partners, the public. Then as far as the Auditor General is concerned, they scored in 2017, the next slide, 83, and then in 2019, 78, and then they stagnated in 2021 at 78. So the recommendation that the open budget survey gives, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Uganda's Parliament provides the legislative committee should examine the audit report and publish a report with their findings online. They've been doing commendable work, but most of this work remains there in Parliament and is only shared with the line ministries. To strengthen independence and improve audit oversight, by the Uganda Office of the Auditor General, the following actions have been recommended to ensure this body has adequate funding. Honorable Minister, adequate funding. The way you are walking, coming in here showed that there is adequate funding. So, to perform its duties and determined by the independent body, for instance, the legislator could give some more guidance on how much the Auditor General will require to be more effective, and then ensure that audit processes are reviewed by an independent agency. And definitely this will require an additional budget line. Honorable Minister, the document that will be launched by you, which the DST is trying to explain to you, we have the numbers enough so that it is able to go to the list of the brothers. And before you walked in, I had given an example of a closed budget system where effective midnight tonight, I increased the price of salt from 3,000 per kilo to 5,000. With these few remarks, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for listening to me. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Honorable Jachan Omach. Mr. Minister, you're most welcome. Let me request the House to give you a hand of applause for welcoming you. Just before you came, we introduced ourselves in groups, and I would like to repeat the same. Here before you, we have a team of civil society organizations, the majority of whom have been part of the National Budget Month. And on this note, we appreciate the Ministry of Finance for having hosted the National Budget Month all this period. Civil society organizations which are present are the following: Uganda Debt Network, which is hosting this activity, Siatini, CSBAG, and Akode. And then we have also been doing it with ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and Ministry of Finance has always been hosting us. Let us appreciate Ministry of Finance for having done this. All this period, they have been hosting this activity, and this national budget, the OBS launch is part of the National Budget Month. And the agencies that have been doing it include, of course, your office, the Office of the Auditor General, Bank of Uganda, UDB, Uganda Revenue Authority, and ODI and others. Before you came in, we had a presentation from the Executive Director of Uganda Debt Network. Let me request him to stand up for recognition. He's the one. He gave his submission. A copy of his presentation is available to be given to you. Then we also, of course, had a representation from the DST. We request him to stand for, of course he can't stand for recognition, you know him, but we appreciate his student for you until such a time when you came in. I would like to request Mr. Tagore Ali, who has, along with Mr. Kakama, been chairing these NBM meetings, but also who has been with us. So let me request him to invite the DST to invite you to do the launch. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Our Honorable Minister, you are most welcome. Our dear ST, and of course our invited guests, we thank you for being with us today. I've been given a simple task of inviting our dear PST to invite the Honorable Minister to take us through the main item on the agenda, which is the launch of the Open Budget Survey results 2021. On this note, our dear PST, I wish to invite you to invite the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and dear participants to this very important occasion. My simple duty is to invite you to launch this open budget survey report, and I don't know whether he's going to unveil it. Mr. Ali, the minister is to go and unveil it. Maybe it's drawn here. Yes. Yeah. So together with, I think it can be escorted by Uganda Debt Network to launch it together. Okay, after the remarks, yeah, he makes the remarks and then...
we are requesting that he makes the remarks and then he does the launch. Yeah.
So that's better. So, Minister, you're welcome.
That's very good, sir.
Let me remove this thing here. I hope nobody passes on COVID, or neither do I pass COVID to anybody. The DST, heads of government institutions, our development partners are also here represented? Yes, UNICEF. Board online. Board chairperson, UNDN, directors of CSOs, the academia, I've seen some of them here, the ministry technical team, the media personnel, the distinguished guests around, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, you know, when the troops are not moving in the same direction, there is chaos. I was unable to be here on time because I was summoned somewhere abruptly, so I'm sorry for that coming late. Now let me begin by, Fred did touch it. You younger people, when I was working in the 70s, the Minister of Finance would prepare his budget with his team, then they go to Radio Uganda to read. And then he would say, with effective from midnight tonight. We have not known what there is in that budget, how it has come in. We just waited for instruction and then we march. So I'm glad, and I must congratulate the people who have made budgeting a transparent activity. Because what is the budget? The budget is a report, no, not a report, is an instrument through which you are going to solve people's problems. Now, how do you keep it yourself up right up to midnight? Everybody should be able to know what is coming. The budget is not Kasaija's budget, it's not Museveni's budget, it is the people's budget. We are only acting on their behalf to create that instrument to say citizens of Uganda, because all Ugandans cannot be here. This is how we have planned, and you remember we traversed the countryside. When we are in it, I remember I was in Hoima, some people went elsewhere to tell the people this is what is available. How do you think we should handle it? Then they give you their priorities. If you can accommodate them, you accommodate them. If you cannot, then you say, fellow citizens, because the Mugati is this big, but you have problems this big, I cannot satisfy each and everybody. So I think it is a very good system, and we should congratulate those who introduced it. I wish to welcome you all to the launch of Uganda's Open Budget Survey results for the year 2021. I commend the Uganda Data Network and the International Budget Advocacy Group for complementing our efforts towards promoting budget transparency. Since 2013, when the ministry commenced implementation of the Budget Transparency Initiative, there has been notable improvement in access to budget information and the participation of the citizens in the budget process, as I've just mentioned. This is mainly attributed to the continued advocacy by the civil society for an inclusive and participatory budget process. The NDP3 aspires to improve government effectiveness through, among others, improving of quality of public services and the quality of policy formulation and implementation by enhancing the level of involvement of non-state actors in the policy formulation process. The key interventions include the following. 1, strengthen collaboration of all stakeholders to promote local economic development. 2, increase participation of non-state actors in planning and budgeting. 3, improve access to timely, accurate, and comprehensive public information. 3, implement e-governance across the public sector to enhance transparency and accountability. Government is implementing the above interventions in collaboration with the Budget Transparency Initiative partners and other CSOs. We have engaged and worked with the citizens through their representatives, the civil society, and also private sector during the budgeting process. This has created a good working relationship between government, the private sector, and the civil society, and has enabled us to obtain valuable feedback which we always use in formulating strategies that are responsive to the needs of the people. The ministry has leveraged an ICT to facilitate access to information by the citizens and obtain the feedback. So citizens, please, if you have anything you think you should convey to us and useful, you are free to do so. It hosts the budget website, let me go through on this one. It hosts the budget website, www.budget.go.ug, which provides budget information for ministries, departments, and agencies, and local governments. There is also a toll-free hotline. Please, those of us who are listening, take care of this. There is also a toll-free hotline, 0800 22 9229 that was established as a platform to enable the wider public with limited access to internet and low internet literacy to access the budget information and provide us a feedback. Online transfer information management system was introduced. The system has promoted transparency in the computation of local governments' indicative planning figures, which are used by local governments to develop their detailed decentralized budgets and work plans. The ministry also works with the CSOs to develop and publish the Citizens Guide to the budget to make the budget easily accessible and understood by all citizens. The Open Budget Survey, therefore, gives us the opportunity to evaluate our interventions and obtain feedback on the extent to which they are contributing to the attainment of our desired outcomes. The ministry is committed to addressing the issues highlighted in the medium term to the extent possible, and in collaboration with you, our partners, to get back to the progressive trend for the parameters where we remained static in order to attain or exceed the pass mark until we become one of the best countries in Africa. We deliberate on measures that we put in place to enhance public participation by diversifying the formal opportunities offered to the public to participate in the budget process and oversight by executive, parliament, and audit institutions. Let me rephrase this one. You know, at times you people, you write your, you know, those technical people, they write as if they're writing it themselves. All we are saying, dear citizens who may be listening and who may be watching us, a budget is a tool through which government plans how to solve your problems, given the resources. That's all. That's the matter. You are free to criticize. You are free to contribute where you think something good should be included. I wish to thank all of you for the support rendered to the government of Uganda in promoting budget transparency. We will continue working with you and leverage on ICT to further improve Uganda's rating. I therefore commend the civil society for the continuous advocacy and support, without which the noted improvement in Uganda's rating wouldn't have been possible. It is through the prevailing collaboration that Uganda has been able to lead within the East African region in 2 of the 3 partner states assessed. With great pleasure, it is now my honor to launch the Uganda's Open Budget Survey results for the year 2021. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. So as the way of launching, this is how it's going to be. We have the book which has been presented there. He's going to sign it. And the following are going to be beside him as he signs it. The DST will be there, the chairperson of UDN board, the executive director of UDN, be closed as he signs.
So what do we say? We don't.
You want your mic?
Okay.
We hereby launch
We hereby launch
the Uganda
the Uganda
Open Budget
Budget
Survey Results.
Surveillance Report.
Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Minister, you can stay there. We have the following development partners whom we request also to come close. They will sign, but we shall have a group photo of the following. We request UNICEF to come close. We are going to have a group photo, and those people will sign. And of course, the four panelists that will be presenting, whom we are going to go to next. That is the academia, Dr. Mhumza, the people who are listed, Dr. Chigondo, pardon, CS Bar, yeah, for gender balance. PSFU. UHSS, please, you also come there. UHSS, and of course, Mr. Commissioner, we request you, Mr. Kakama, be present in the picture. And of course, Commissioner Ali, we request you to be in the picture. The lens is big enough to capture as many as possible. We have PSFU. If you are behind, you smile, at least the camera will catch you. Okay, thank you. The what?
Honorable, there is a cup of tea.
The drink is around.
Honorable, you may need to attend to our media people. They need to ask you a few questions. Thank you so much.
So, as let me get some slight guidance. Does he need the interview from me? Because we want to proceed. Okay, I'm going to inform. Will he be around with us?
No,
He might go.
let them first come.
Eh?
Do what?
We are requesting some guidance from ministry on issue, because we still have a program ahead of us. To give a discussion. Okay. So we give you an opportunity. So, Mr. Minister, having spoken, given your remarks, and the media are going to get some few words from you, but like you talked about some other panelists that are here present, we shall, if you have a minute or two, you might listen in. At least we shall have one panelist to discuss the budget before you go too.
That gentleman should give it to you.
When I see your body, I admire my body. Baby, when I'm home,
We ignored them. Now people are complaining they have already given me so little. It was expected even before the budget was approved. Maybe Parliament allow us to say I see fuel going down, I see this one going down. Give me the latest figures. You guys want to see how you bring me a revised budget that reflects this. You don't want to approve something in May and cut in July.
talk to the media about this big event because it's going to be broadcast all over. So, Mr. Minister, the next program, with your indulgence, we have a few more people to talk. One, we shall have the Parliamentary Budget Office Committee Chairperson, Dr. Chigundu. We are requesting you to briefly discuss this. We have 5 minutes each from the presenters. Yeah. Yes, feel free to come here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, the Honorable Minister, the board members of UDN, my colleagues. I'm happy to be part of this launch of the Open Budget Index, and I associate myself with what other people have said, the importance of Open Budget Survey. As Parliament, the Open Budget Survey system indeed is a useful tool because to a large extent it has improved on the transparency of budgets at all stages. And the assessment, as Honorable March has gone through it, is very comprehensive and it touches on all aspects of the budget cycle, the formulation, planning, approval, and oversight. As Parliament, our primary role is majorly in the approval stage of the budget and oversight. And as the report says about implementation and oversight, for us, we see a thin line between those two. Our parliamentary committees do a lot of work in both the scrutiny and oversight. And we do applaud the results, especially, although the presenter was talking about 58 as not good enough. As Parliament, a lot has been done in terms of budget scrutiny and oversight, and we think that with improved funding, a lot can be done. I've seen the recommendations, especially in terms of the parliamentary oversight, but especially public participation. And the recommendation touch on the issue of allowing members of the public and the civil society to take part. Parliament has over time improved on this public participation. Indeed, SS Bag, for the last 19 years I've been in Parliament, I've seen civil society evolution and the formation of SS Bag. I've been around all the time. They have been presenting position papers to Parliament, and part of their recommendations have been taken on either at committee level, then budget committee level, and also at parliamentary level. What could be missing is a lack of a structured system of their involvement. If you look at the Kijani public finance management regime, it allows, there is a legal redress to public participation. It's mandatory. But in the case of Uganda, our parliament, although it has been taking place, there is no provision in the law for that public participation. But members of civil society, Uganda Manufacturing Association, the traders, the business community, have always been given the opportunity to participate in the budget making process, and they have indeed made very good proposals, some of them taken on by Parliament. As I said, the only challenge is the legality. So to the Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister, if there is any way of, I know there are attempts to do some amendments to the Public Finance Management Act. Maybe that's one of the areas the Minister could do. Think about how they integrate public participation in the legal in the legal parameters so that it can be recognized instead of the current ad hoc nature. It largely depends on the committees allowing members of the public to participate. Also, the other aspect of public participation, over time, civil society, as I've heard from the ED of UDN, they are changing from more of public, more of dialogue than questioning government politicians. They have become partners. Also, as Parliament, we really appreciate civil society who come with evidence-based, alternative policy scenarios, especially in terms of improving the budget system. Instead of coming with complaints, we welcome good proposals. If this don't work, what can work? How has it worked? So that we improve the system. So that is as far as public participation is concerned. As regards oversight, the recommendations here say that the parliamentary committees should examine executive budget proposals and publish reports of their analysis online. Indeed, between January and the whole of January, when Parliament is considering the budget framework paper, there's a lot of interaction between the committees, the public, and the MDAs in terms of budget. And as budget office, we do a lot of analysis on those budget proposals. But the way parliamentary procedures work, that is work in progress. You can hardly publish online a working document. For example, these are mere proposals. The committee may propose, increase this, and the social envelope cannot allow. So until when Parliament has pronounced itself on a committee and the recommendations captured in the hazard, then that becomes the final documentation. So our take on that we can hardly, even if that's what is required, we can hardly publish work in progress, because it may cause a lot of alarmism, saying that the committee has recommended this before Parliament even has made a pronouncement. So if it is captured in the media, it may cause unnecessary excitement, which cannot be controlled. So I think that is what I can say about that the final report is eventually published, and when the Parliament has made a pronouncement. The other issues are about a legislative committee should examine in-year budget implementation. According to the Public Finance Management Act, every October and February, the Ministry of Finance publishes budget fiscal performance report. And we do, as budget committee, examine that. But again, you can hardly publish results of a midterm review, for example, of budget implementation. Because if you say the budget has not been done before the end of financial year, then an agency would say that the year is still on. So you can only rely on end of year reporting that can be made public. Otherwise, you will be accused of saying government is not doing so well, this ministry, when the budget is still being implemented. So, but a lot has been done in terms of budget execution and implementation and oversight. Then finally, as regards the recommendations, where do we go now in terms of transparency? As I've just said, to increase public participation, to make it more formal and legally binding, there should be an attempt to maybe make an amendment to the Public Finance Management Act, like it is done in Kenya. Then also, where the public is to, again, participate, there should be an effort to try to encourage them to provide evidence-based policy alternatives during the parliamentary budget approval, because the experience I've had over years, every class of people category, they usually come with one option. The budget is both revenue and expenditure. They usually come with increase teacher salaries, doctor salaries, soldier salaries, everybody, civil servants, When you touch the revenue side, they said, don't. So those are the issues. You should try to balance the revenue and the expenditure side of the budget. So as public participants, they should be educated that the money to finance the budget should largely come from within the taxes, other than increasing the demand from already constrained our budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dr. Chigondo. We have now a few more presenters. We shall request them to be extremely brief. Like the Minister observed, we shall have also the academic angle to this exercise. And let's request Dr. Fred Muhumuza to give his submission, either from there or from here, within 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'll remain seated to preserve my 3 minutes. First of all, I want to congratulate UDN for keeping a working relationship with the Ministry of Finance, which is not common in those days when civil society used to take on a confrontation approach with government. So seeing this happen within the premises of the ministry and the minister officiating on this is a really progress made in the area of budget transparency, but also in the area of partnership between government and civil society. I'll just raise a few, maybe 3 issues that need to be taken care of. It is nice to have a transparent budget process, but it's even better for us to add value to that transparency. And the intra-budget changes and inconsistencies that happen during implementation or after the budget process has closed will not help the minister really to benefit from the transparency processes when he meets the public. So we want to encourage that along the budget preparation processes which are transparent, entities of government should be encouraged or actually kind of summoned by the Ministry of Finance to bring in all the other avenues and other information that they may need to include in the budget, rather than coming either at the tail end of the budget process or even after the implementation has begun. We have taken note that some of the supplementary requests are actually not emergencies that supplementary is supposed to address. So in order for us to gain from that, the minister needs to be more assertive on the entities within government to take the ministry seriously and this transparency agenda seriously. The second thing is on budget certainty. The purpose government introduced the medium-term expenditure framework about 25 years ago today was to literally allow entities of government to be able to predict how much they would have in the current year, but also in the subsequent 3 years, which have now been extended to 5 years. But because of unforeseen reasons, some of them really, by the time the budget begins, will have foreseen them. The budget cuts on the releases do not speak well, and I think it came out in the report that in some cases what has been discussed is so different from the actual. Now some of these shortfalls are seen even before the budget is appropriated. So we would want to encourage government to capture the realities on the ground. Speaking of things like revenue shortfalls that were predicted even before the budget was appropriated, which have translated into the budget releases that are lower than expected. Now that does not give an accounting officer certainty. If they think Parliament appropriated 70 billion for the sector and they divide that by 4, so they expect to get at least some 15 or 14 billion at the start of the first quarter, and they only get 6. But this is because the revenue shortfalls, which the minister has indicated is unable to control, but at least we would have seen some of these during the winding up periods and processes of budget appropriation. The minister should be given the leverage to either represent some of the emerging information in April, or even if it is May, to say what I foresee the revenue I had predicted at the time we presented to you the first national budget framework paper. I am unable to raise that revenue, or the donor commitments may fall short because the donors will get committed, as we see in Europe.
some of our beloved donors are going to have challenges beyond their own control, so they may not live up to their obligations. So we need to be sharing this information so that at least what is appropriated is closest to what the minister will be implementing in the course of the year. The final submission is on transparency, really on future projections of key budget drivers. We have noticed a number of policy decisions that are taken at sector level that come to disrupt the budgeting processes. What are we talking about? We have salary enhancements that happen either within the year. And we have had some conversations where the government will tell, like, for example, the teachers, the budget process is already closed. We can only accommodate you in the subsequent years. And yet, in some cases, we find others are able to push in their own decisions and disrupt those processes. So institutional changes by policy at sector level. And we are speaking of something that take away the power of the minister to manage his budget. A sector will decide and say, we are going to have a primary school in every parish. Now, the minister is not in charge of the creation of parishes. Now, any parish that is created in between is going to drive the budget going forward. And it's not a one-off event. It's going to be something that will continue. We have seen decisions by the Minister of Health upgrading Health Center 3s to Health Center 4s. Now, these have budget implications that need to be discussed on whether that policy should even be adopted or another alternative thought through. So while we are celebrating the transparency of the budget, it's not good to just be transparent. It is good to secure the processes that are being presented under the transparency framework. The budget processes should remain intact, should remain predictable, should remain versatile, but most importantly should remain within the control of the Ministry of Finance and the Presidency. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Muhumuza. So those are bits and pieces of the discussion of the report. Mr. Minister, in case you have a comment or feedback on the feedback that has been given to you, you can give it. If not, we can request now the country representative of UNICEF, who have been the partners in this exercise, to come and do the closing remarks. But then the discussions will go on and on. Some are online, others what. But let me just introduce the person who has been coordinating this exercise. She is called Ms. Christine Bieringiro, along with Hilda Tumuhe. Hilda, could you please stand up? Let's clap for those people. They're the ones who have coordinated the exercise. I want to recognize a technical expert on ABS, Madame Namaga Imelda. She is the one who has been doing this exercise since 2006. And for media, in case you have a technical question beyond what has been discussed on this, you can approach her. She'll give further explanation along with Hilda on that exercise. Now, let me request UNICEF. The two UNICEFs, please stand up for recognition. Thank you so much. Those, along with International Budget Partnership, have been giving contributions towards this exercise, and we appreciate them so much. So let me request UNICEF to come here and officially close this exercise with those remarks that you would prefer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm not the country representative of UNICEF, but I do work with UNICEF, and I convey the UNICEF representatives' apologies for not making it because of prior commitments. But we are very happy to be here and at the launch of these results. So Honorable Matiaka Saija, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Jachan Omach, the Chair of the Board of UDN, Honorable MPs, the CSOs and the media, and all protocol observed, we want to congratulate the Uganda Debt Network on the performance that we have had in this open budget survey, coming the 43rd, like has been stated. Congratulations. In addition to that, we want to reaffirm our commitment to working with the Uganda Debt Network and the Ministry of Finance. And we have done this over the years. We've worked with Imelda and many of the technical staff here to analyze and see how can our performance be better in the open budget survey. There is a time when, just a few years ago, we were celebrating being second in Africa. You all remember that time. And we looked into each and every indicator to see how best we could improve. So yes, there is celebration that it is a good performance. We are fourth in the sub-Saharan Africa. But of course, there are opportunities for us to, as a patriotic Ugandan, to become, to have a much better position. But there is a more important thing about the welfare of the citizen, because it doesn't make too much sense if we have a better performance in the open budget survey without a strong correlation with the well-being of Ugandans, and most especially for the children and the most vulnerable. And I think as we work to better our performance, let us also look at the inroads in which we can build a better correlation between better performance and better conditions, better things happening in our livelihoods, better for our children and the women everywhere. And as we look at this open budget survey, we see that there are still opportunities also to understand the funding that comes outside the public spending from within government. Also, there is need to integrate off-budget support, on-budget support, so that we fully understand the transparency of all financial resources. So I had a very small job to close this, and I would say that it is closed now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Minister, sir, thank you so much for being part of us. The discussion can continue. Thank you also for the feed. Please, we release you. So we had to formally get to that stage because the minister was with us and he had to go. So apologies for the jumbling of the program. There was an item regarding the discussion at the end, and then there was also a presenter. I know there are some other people who would like to say something here and there. I request a few remarks, and then can we have some extra 10 minutes of the discussion? Is it okay? Because people have not fully commented on the report. There are a number of things that wanted to come up. I request the Executive Director of Siatini to take lead in that. Because we had not heard from them, and they were on the program. But I was pushed. The minister said they had to go. and apologies. But we request Siatini to take the lead in the discussion and the plenary.
Good evening, members. All protocol observed. Just as he stipulated, I'm not the executive director. Penny Nambabazi, and I work for Siatini. Just to make a few remarks that we wanted to have as a CSO perspective. Just to stipulate on some of the issues that had already been mentioned earlier. In regard to the OBS, we believe that the OBS has really, the Open Budget Survey has really had an opportunity for us to see what is actually happening on ground when it comes to the budget, but also we feel that only focusing on the budget process is also a bit limiting for the survey. And you find, like, just like how the Honorable Minister has mentioned, there is both the revenue and the expenditure side. So as for us as Siatini, but also on behalf of other CSOs, we would like to emphasize the need for government to put in more emphasis, even aside the commendations that we have given regarding how the National Budget Month has gone, and also emphasizing on what could be done better is really on highlighting on the need for the revenue side, which is on the tax side. What we need to emphasize more is also to see that there's a lot of appreciation that comes from citizens, not only in the budget process, but also in ensuring that as revenue or as taxpayers, they're able to appreciate the services that they receive. And we need to see more mechanisms come out from government to stipulate that harmonization, that while we want to emphasize the performance that has been credible on government side, we would want to be able to ensure that the tax cycle as well as the budget process do move hand in hand, even with the in-year reports that are actually presented or collected in the OBS. It's good that we could be able to also push it further to emphasize that they still need to make sure there is more emphasis on accountability, utilization, as well as also on the mobilization side of resources. So even while we want to focus only on the National Budget Month process ending, I feel it's actually a start to see to it that it continues as a process, that we do get to have feedback from the citizens in engaging, government engaging in ensuring the citizens are part of the process till the very end, and also creating a lot of platforms that can create more room for the citizens to be pushed into understanding the processes, understanding the tax cycle, understanding the budget process, understanding where exactly this money is actually going to, the utilization angle, as well as the accountability mechanisms should be put in place further. And demystifying the documents, but also the disaggregated data is needed to be done. We can't look at only the emphasizing the vulnerable and the underrepresented communities if we do not have the data that speaks to how best we want government to now engage with these people. So we need to be able to look at how we can actually have this data, utilize it at the end of so many budget procedures, but also at the given time of the start of the financial year, look at those people that we want to be able to engage with, not only government, but also even for civil society to come in to help in the process of engaging with different stakeholders. And I believe that is part of the process that will, part of the engaging and part of the room for interventions like these that can be able to emphasize more need for broadening the OBS survey and also for strengthening the already cleared platforms that government has put across. Yeah, so this is what I can say from COTIN. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny. Thank you, everybody, for this exercise. The last item was the way forward. And the way forward is that, one, this is the National Budget Month, and this exercise of OBS launch. some of the people who were here, as you may have seen, they have gone out and they are going on media, on TV, on radio and others. You're listening to. Of course, we have our contacts and some of the exercises can continue being posted. And of course, it is a repetitive cycle and we shall conduct an extra exercise every after 2 years and we shall always be calling you back. So that's how it will be. The lady Christine, whom I mentioned in her absentia, has come. Let me request her to stand for recognition, and we have closed. Christine, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Ministry of Finance, for hosting us.
Yeah, as Gilbert has said, it's just to add more onto his acknowledgement. We thank you very much for the time, and we wish you journey mercies to all the directions of the city. And we look forward to being here again when? 2020? 25? 24?
23, because this one was...
Hey, this is 21. Okay, so 23 we shall be here again, inshallah.
But we shall, of course, have engaged you. That will be the climax.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Wish you journey mercies to your respective places of residence.
The one that I've been looking for. Yeah, they would charge me. Awful